Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. In this episode, we are going to learn about the life and work of Mahatma Gandhi, one of the most influential leaders of the 20th century who led India's struggle for freedom from British colonial rule through non-violent resistance. Mahatma Gandhi was born on October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, a coastal town in western India that was part of the British Raj. His father, Karam Chand Gandhi, was a chief minister of a small princely state, and his mother, Putlabai, was a devout Hindu who followed the Jain tradition of compassion and nonviolence. Gandhi was the youngest of his father's 4 wives' children. He had 2 brothers and 1 sister. He grew up in a home steeped in religion, and he took for granted religious tolerance and the doctrine of ahimsa, non-injury to all living beings. He was influenced by Hindu scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana, as well as by Jainism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. He respected all faiths and believed that truth was one but paths were many. He studied law in England from 1888 to 1891, after overcoming his initial difficulties with the English language and culture. He joined the Inner Temple, one of the 4 Inns of Court in London that provide legal education and training for barristers. He also became interested in vegetarianism, social reform, and religious movements. He was called to the bar in June 1891 and returned to India later that year. He tried to establish a law practice in Bombay, now Mumbai, and Raikot, but he had little success. In 1893, he accepted a 1-year contract to work as a legal advisor for an Indian merchant in Natal, South Africa. He sailed to Durban with his wife Kasturba, whom he had married in 1883 when they were both 13 years old. They had 4 sons: Harilal, Manalal, Ramdas, and Devdas. He planned to return to India after completing his contract, but he changed his mind when he witnessed the racial discrimination and injustice faced by Indians in South Africa. He was appalled by the treatment of Indians as second-class citizens who had no political rights, no civil liberties, and no social respect. He himself experienced humiliation and abuse on several occasions. For example, he was thrown off a train for refusing to move from a first-class compartment to a third-class one. He was beaten by a stagecoach driver for refusing to give up his seat to a European passenger. And he was barred from entering several hotels and public places because of his skin color. He decided to stay in South Africa and fight for the rights of Indians. He founded the Natal Indian Congress in 1894 and became its secretary. He also started a newspaper called Indian Opinion in 1903. He mobilized the Indian community to protest against unjust laws and policies through petitions, boycotts, strikes, and civil disobedience. He also developed his method of nonviolent resistance, which he called satyagraha, truth force. He believed that satyagraha was not only a political tactic but also a moral duty. He said, "Satyagraha is a relentless search for truth and a determination to reach truth." He spent 21 years in South Africa and faced many hardships and imprisonments for his cause. He also underwent many personal transformations during this period. He adopted a simple lifestyle and renounced worldly possessions. He experimented with various diets and eventually became a strict vegetarian. He also practiced celibacy from 1906 onwards as a form of self-discipline and spiritual purification. He returned to India in 1915 at the age of 45. He was welcomed as a hero by the Indian people who had followed his achievements in South Africa. He soon became the leader of the Indian National Congress, the main political party fighting for India's independence from British rule. He traveled across India to understand its problems and needs. He established an ashram near Ahmedabad where he lived with his followers and family. He organized nationwide campaigns for various social and political causes. Some of them were the Champaran Satyagraha of 1917–18, a campaign to support the indigo farmers of Bihar who were exploited by British planters; the Kheda Satyagraha of 1918, a campaign to demand relief for the peasants of Gujarat who were suffering from famine and excessive taxation; the Khilafat movement of 1920–22, a campaign to support the Muslim community in India who were agitated by the abolition of the Ottoman Caliphate by the British after World War I; the non-cooperation movement of 1920–22, a campaign to boycott British goods, institutions, and services and to promote Indian-made products, education, and self-reliance. The civil disobedience movement of 1930–34, a campaign to defy British laws and regulations, especially the salt tax, which prohibited Indians from making or selling salt. Gandhi led the famous salt march from his ashram to the sea coast at Dandi, where he made salt from seawater in a symbolic act of defiance. Thousands of Indians followed his example and were arrested by the British authorities. The Quit India movement of 1942–44, a campaign to demand immediate independence from British rule as India's price for aiding Britain in World War II. Gandhi gave his famous slogan, "Do or die," and urged Indians to resist British rule by any means possible. He was arrested along with other Congress leaders and spent 2 years in prison. He also worked for various social reforms and causes, such as eradicating untouchability and caste discrimination. He called the untouchables Harijans, children of God, and campaigned for their rights and dignity. He also opposed the practice of child marriage and advocated for women's education and empowerment, promoting communal harmony and religious tolerance. He respected all faiths and tried to bridge the gap between Hindus and Muslims. He also opposed the idea of partitioning India on religious lines and creating a separate Muslim state of Pakistan, encouraging Swadeshi, self-reliance, and village industries. He believed that India's economic and political salvation lay in reviving its rural economy and culture. He promoted the use of hand-spun and hand-woven cloth, khadi, as a symbol of national pride and independence. He also supported the development of small-scale industries such as pottery, leatherwork, carpentry, etc. He adopted the short dhoti woven with hand-spun yarn as a mark of identification with India's rural poor. He also practiced celibacy, fasting, and simple living. He inspired millions of Indians with his courage, charisma, and moral authority. He was deeply involved in the negotiations for India's partition and independence in 1947. He tried to prevent the bloodshed and riots that followed the creation of Pakistan as a separate Muslim state. He advocated for Hindu-Muslim unity and opposed the idea of dividing India on religious lines. He was assassinated on January 30, 1948, by Nathuram Godse, a Hindu fanatic who blamed him for appeasing Muslims. He was shot 3 times at point-blank range while he was on his way to a prayer meeting in Delhi. He died with the name of God on his lips. His last words were, "Hey Ram, oh God." He was cremated according to Hindu rites and his ashes were scattered in various rivers and seas. He was honored with the title of Mahatma, Great Soul, by his followers and admirers. He is widely regarded as the father of the nation in India and a global icon of peace and justice. His legacy lives on in his teachings, writings, and actions. He influenced many other leaders and movements around the world, such as Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Dalai Lama, Aung San Suu Kyi, and many more. He once said, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." He also said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about Mahatma Gandhi. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe